a playlist original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your hosts, Gaius and Jackson. Except this week, it's not just us two. We are joined with someone else from the other side of Back to the Blockbuster, someone that started this little podcast with me. And even though he's not on the weekly show every week, you can still hear him every other week on our deep dive spinoff. Welcome, Owen Erickson.
Let's go, guys.
The whole
It's good
gang's
to be
together.
back. Yeah, Jackson, it's great to finally be on an episode with you, man. It's funny, I don't get to say it's Gaius's or my pick this week. So this week I'm just kind of tuning in to discuss. I feel like I'm the third wheel now. So but it feels good. I'm really excited to be here today and to discuss some of the awesome stuff that we're going to talk about. One of my favorite franchises. So can't wait to get rolling. It's good to be here.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual, buddy.
Yeah, so this one's interesting because like Jackson joined, I think January, and you officially joined
Early January.
and that's a feel like I mean I guess we've been having a lot of fun since time has kind of flown since you joined.
Yeah,
I know the feeling.
It
Exactly. Time
goes
goes
by really fast. But then like I would have separate discussions with you guys offline that are just very similar. Like, oh, I can't wait to record with him. I would like to record with him. Or like, oh, when am I going to be able to record with him? And I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be like at 100 episodes soon. And then Jackson was like, well, I'd like to do one before that. And Owen was basically like, I'm going to do one before that too.
Yeah, I think I said it in the episode. I was like, I'm not waiting 27 weeks, 23 weeks to
Too
get
far
on
out.
it. This needs to happen now.
Yeah. So, I
Totally.
mean, I'm glad that it finally did. And we found a good one to kind of do it on because we're going to be talking about the John Wick franchise and just like its influence on other action films since this franchise started. It's favorite of Owen's. He loves this
Okay.
franchise. So when we were trying to figure out which one he should be on, because he had wanted to be on one that we recorded like a few weeks ago, and he was like, whatever you guys are talking about, just let me know. But we were like cramming so much into that particular episode and stuff. I was like, well, let's figure out like which ones we can do. And I can't take credit for this topic. This was all Jackson. But when I saw it on when I saw it on the list, though, I was like, oh wait, that's a perfect one for Owen to be a part of because like
It's a
I think
no-brainer.
I think more
Clearly.
than me, he probably could talk about this franchise. Yeah, probably more than anyone I know, really.
Oh,
So,
awesome.
so this is a good one to jump in on, and yeah, I'm excited that we are finally all three doing this together because we've always post on social media like this is a team, and I've had people like message me like, well, when are you guys gonna do one together? And I was like, all right, well,
Well,
it's
also
coming,
even
it's
too, like
coming.
even your recent social media posts where it's like you're in the middle and then it's Jackson and me side by side. It was
Yeah.
like, wait, we need to get that on like a freeze frame when we're actually all talking together. We need to
Together.
post one of these videos.
Absolutely.
Talking.
It's
That is
surreal.
good. That's a good suggestion, actually. So I can
It
finally be
is.
like, yay, we all did this like together.
It's surreal having like heard Owen's voice so many times over like a few months. I've been a listener and on the podcast, and now to be interacting and like talking about collaborating on an episode together. It's like, holy shit, it's finally here. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. And same goes to you. I mean, I've been listening to the regular show every week, and it's
Nice.
just progressively gotten better. And Gaius was kind of saying too, and I completely agree with him, is that you guys just kind of hit your stride pretty much right away. And for you guys to do that, to me, I mean, it's just very impressive for the chemistry to start working. And I appreciate all the sort of like the quote unquote homework that you guys kind of do that goes into all making
Totally,
the
man.
episode. And like, I respect that a lot. And so you guys have started to create a seamless show, and it's just going to keep getting better. That's all I know.
That's
Yeah.
awesome to hear, man. We love the support. This is the shit that we love to do, all three of us, right? So it honestly just comes naturally. Like I've told Gaius many times on and offline, like this is just how I spend my time anyway. So like super humbled and grateful to be able to share this medium with you guys and to the listeners and just talk about the stuff that I am passionate about too. And it's great to do it with a great couple of guys. So thank you very much for embracing me onto the team, both of you.
Hey, of course.
No, it was
We're lucky to
very
have
Happy
you.
to be here.
yeah, it was very easy. I mean, I got a message from my buddy David who I went to middle school with, and like I always like talk film and stuff with him, like other than like Owen, and he was just saying that like the episodes last like 2 months, and he was like referencing both shows. He was like they just feel like so focused, and like you can tell that you guys have like a really good rhythm, and I think that's just a product of like being able to create both of the shows because they're both so different. But everyone brings like it's a lot to do the industry stuff week to week. And, like Owen knows he was a part of it for a little bit when it was week to week.
For a year, man.
For a year. Yeah.
No, I feel you, dude.
It's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of note taking and trying to keep up with what's going on. But like I said before, I'm glad that we figured out a way to like have both shows, like have this one and then have the deep dive spinoff, because they've actually, I feel like they've been working well together and growing pretty well together. I gotta shout out Good Pods, because we're still trying to get back to number 1 on the film reviews chart. We ranked number 4 again when I checked it today.
Right.
And this is our week, guys. This is
I know,
the
right?
week.
This could be it.
This is it.
And there's nothing wrong with being in the top 5. There's a ton of shows on like independent podcasts on there.
That's impressive as hell.
But yeah, I mean, it always coincides with like, hey, we have like the deep dive one, and then there's a spike, and then like our regular show comes out, and there's a spike. So I appreciate everyone listening to all platforms, but that one's especially, a good one, because it is a bunch of like independent shows like really supporting each other and like listening to each other and sharing our episodes with people. I get to tell you guys both this. I actually told Owen a little bit about this, but I actually have a virtual meeting with someone at Good Pods tomorrow to talk about how to further promote the podcast on their
awesome
platform. So that should be a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait to hear how that goes.
So yeah, it'll be good. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, like, it's kind of surreal that we're finally all doing this together, because it felt like it's weird to think of them. Like, I remember when we were doing the spinoff stuff, and I was like emailing playlists, and I was like, all right, we need like a different intro, we need a different this for it to be so it's different from like the main show. But then I was like, well, I still want us to be like cohesive kind of team, where it's not like it's not like I'm like, not like it's like, oh, this is like me and Owen doing this, and then me and Jackson doing that. It's all together. Like one doesn't work without the other now at this point, I think.
Exactly.
So so I've been trying to drive that home, which is why I told you guys, like, send me like the new intro videos and stuff, and like we're gonna cut some more stuff together so it looks like we're more of like a cohesive unit as well. But I definitely feel it. I definitely feel how good things have been as far as like the content, like from both shows, and that's a testament to just both of you guys. So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Of course, man. And I feel like I like to say I've had an uncanny ability for my picks for the deep dive that I pick something that happens to be trending that week.
It's trending that week.
I don't know if it's that, but I think when I picked Killing Them Softly, it was like the director was trending because of Blonde.
That was a sick pick.
When I picked Prisoners, it had just dropped on Netflix, and that was trending at the time. So we'll see if I can keep that momentum rolling. I'm just like rolling in it.
When he picked Tucker and Dale, it was like took off on Good Pods, and I think it's just because that movie is just a little hidden gem, but a lot of people like it. You know what? It's a friendly competition. Like, I haven't had any
that dynamic is honestly sick, though.
Like, trended. I haven't had any movies.
The last episode was so fun, just talking about Mr. Brooks, and
it
was just great to have a discussion about, because Gaius and I agree like pretty much most of the time. So to have one where like he picked a movie where he's like, dude, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like this. As soon as I finished it, I was just like, oh gosh, this was a train wreck in my mind. And so
I've told Gaius before too.
Oh, that movie. That's all he texts me. It's like, God damn it.
That's kind of ambiguous until you get down to the finer details. But no, as much as we agree on a lot of things too, but like I love when we like don't see eye to eye on something and to get the other person's perspective as to why. I honestly just think it's really engaging, and so that's awesome because you guys are pretty much on par. Yeah,
it's a much better
I told him that too.
It can't always be harmonious and like
cool, exactly, because then that's right. Sometimes you just gotta like point out other things. But yeah, that's how I'm planning on getting through my workday tomorrow, is by listening to your latest episode in the morning. So I'm looking.
Oh, it's a good one, man. That's
I can't remember.
It's fun. I forgot what listener sent me this message, but they were basically like, it was funny listening to that episode because they were like, I felt like you gradually started to maybe change your mind that the movie wasn't good. Like, that's where he was like, you were just like, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. I was like, whatever.
Right.
So a few people did support some of it. I have one more poll to put up for that episode, which is gonna like, who did you overall agree with? Whether it's like me.
Oh, nice.
The Dane Cook one that we put up was like split almost down the middle, and I was surprised that I thought it was going to go more your way than mine, but it was kind of like in the middle. That some people thought he was
because there's an overall sort of hatred for Dane Cook. I think.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's universal.
More massively disliked, but
it's a universal. I think a lot of people just don't like him.
But that's actually very intriguing. The fact that, I mean, it was pretty much split down the middle. I can't say
Yeah.
that I would have expected that.
Yeah, and I'm glad I was able to post the Van toss today. I've been waiting to use that
Yes.
one because that was pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, like I said, both shows have been like I've gotten better and better, and that's just like solid chemistry with, of course, like Owen's one of my best friends, but like I told Owen, I was like that could have been risky, like picking you and not knowing you at all, like a total
Big
like a
time,
total,
man.
total stranger. Like I hope this works out. And there were other people that I think I could have gone with, but like it just all these things kind of worked with you, and I'm glad that made that choice. So
Yeah,
nice.
well, I appreciate it because I consider myself very lucky that you reached out when you did, and that I been commenting when I did, and that this all came together, because like this is something I very much look forward to every week.
Yep.
So yeah, happy.
All right.
Love
That
it.
being said, we got some news to cover, boys.
Let's
Yeah,
do
we
it.
got some news. I guess one of the first big things is that Quentin Tarantino is finally going to direct his 10th film. He had been talking about for a long time that 10 was going to be the number that he would stop on. A part of me thought that that would be the case, that he would change his mind.
It's full of shit.
I thought so too, I guess. And we don't know exactly who it's going to be about, but the script for his alleged final film is called The Movie Critic, and he's set to direct a project this fall. Actual details are being kept under wraps, but the Hollywood Reporter says the story is set in the late 1970s Los Angeles with a female lead at its center. The trade also believes that the film could be about Pauline Kael, one of the most influential movie critics of all time. She passed away in 2001, and was not only a movie critic, but also an essayist and novelist. They think that's who the movie could be about.
Tarantino was very fond of. I understand.
He was very fond of, yeah. He
Yeah.
was very fond, and he has long said that he was going to direct 10 films or retire by the time he was 60. And
Kill Bill counts as one, technically.
Kill Bill, yeah,
That's
Kill Bill
right.
does count as one, yeah. And he turns 60 later this month, so the timing kind of lines up. I guess my question to both of you guys, of course he started out as a writer, and he didn't direct True Romance, but he wrote that. He actually wrote an initial draft of Natural Born Killers before Oliver Stone like kind of did a lot of changes on that.
He still has a writing credit on it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he still has a writing credit on it,
Yeah.
and depending on the year, he goes back and forth on whether or not he appreciates that movie or if he thinks shit. After he's done with this, do you think that he'll continue to write stuff even though he won't be on board as the director? Like, you think he has like will his ego allow like other people to direct his work at this point
Ooh.
in
At
his
this
career?
point.
I mean,
Like,
I
Owen,
think that
go first.
I think that he's so ingrained in the cinema culture that it's going to be almost impossible for him to step away. I mean, I think that he's had a little bit of this egotistical, I'm only going to direct 10 movies and that's it. So he's had the ability to kind of stay away, and he's had the fame that once he does get into the spotlight, I mean, he gets to choose the pick of the litter when the actors come rushing to him. So I think that like he's definitely going to get a little bit antsy once he's done with this. But in that same article, Gaius, that you were mentioning, he did say that as directors get older, their movies start to decline. So I think maybe he might second guess his own, or he thinks he's going to start second guessing his own creative ability, maybe. But yeah, I think that he's going to have a lot of influence on certain movies where executive producing credits and just like,
You're totally right.
Yeah, just like helping out with stories. And it's like, oh, this was like, the second that he's part of a movie where it's like, oh, Quentin Tarantino helped write this, he's a part of this, people are going to jump on it and go see it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
what about you,
I
Justin?
agree. He's a total, to reference a movie you just referenced, he's a natural born writer. Like, he is an artist at heart. I don't think that even if he stops directing, that he would completely take himself out of the industry. I think there's even talks of him saying he'd be on board to continue writing like theatrical plays and books as well, which he novelized Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And wouldn't be surprised. He's gonna get bored in retirement, no doubt. So that would be
He's got a lot of energy.
He does got a lot of energy. He's got a lot of ideas. He's an original storyteller.
Quentin Tarantino interviews are for me to watch sometimes because he's just so, I guess neurotic might be the best way to
Yeah,
describe
he
him in
very much is
interviews.
that. That's a
I
great
mean,
way to put
he
him.
also has like human encyclopedia of like filmmaking and films in his head. I mean,
You can't contain.
I can't contain that at all. And I'm
No.
glad you mentioned what he said about how directors' work kind of declines like the older they get.
Right.
And like this is not maybe the best example, but there's someone like people like Woody Allen who like in the 90s 2000s like directed a ton of movies, and you have to like dig through that pile to find like some good ones, because sometimes there's some stinkers in there because he just kept making movies like every year. And I guess you do kind of lose a bit of your credibility when a lot of your best work is like behind you and you're still kind of attempting to kind of maintain that glory a bit. And so I can respect him wanting to like tap out at 10 if he feels like that's all he has in them. I mean, he's one of the rare directors. We talked about this. I don't think he's directed a bad movie.
Not even a
Yeah,
subpar movie.
maybe. So
Honestly.
I mean,
he's
think,
taken the trope of quality versus quantity to a
Yeah.
T, and he's taken that and basically stuck to it. And I respect him for
embodies
saying, yeah, he embodies it. And I think that he's really taken that, and it's very hard for someone in that industry not to be swayed by outside perspectives. But he's basically
Right.
said from the get-go, I'm gonna do 10, that's it, and he's stuck with it. So I respect him for that. But at the same time, just like we were talking about, Gaius, like Stephen King has put out quantity over quality, and we had said there's a lot of stinkers in there sometimes. Firestarter, where, where it's like they're not all the time is it going to be necessarily something that everyone's going to flock to, but everything that he's done, he's just such a fantastic storyteller that he's had the ability to take some mundane ideas, like even something like Reservoir Dogs, which is like just a moment in time in a robbery that he just draws out, and the dialogue that he brings to the table is just unquestionable compared to pretty much anything out there that I've seen.
And that's his debut, which just melts my mind to think about.
I know.
That is such a strong debut for a filmmaker, and
I mean,
still among one of his best.
What I will miss though when he stops making movies is I love Quentin Tarantino dialogue. I mean, I think I've talked about. I talked about it on both shows where like when you go to film school, they constantly tell you like don't make your scripts like dialogue heavy. You have to like move the action along. And there's people like him that did not follow that at all, like because he's a very wordy dude and like all of his stuff. But like when you write that way, I mean, write as well as he does, you can actually have like dialogue heavy movies, and people are gonna like
and they're the highlight
of the movie. Yeah, they're gonna hold on to every single word that he puts out there. So that's what I'll miss the most when he's done.
What I feel bad for though is like he's been able to bring out the best in almost every actor that he has worked with. But the way that they wrote about it in this article, they say he led Christoph Waltz to 2 Oscars. Samuel L. Jackson made many appearances. Like, basically didn't even say that like he's had such a great contribution. He actually hasn't been nominated, but his career has kind of been made by Quentin.
So crazy, yeah.
But, like I just felt like he kind of got thrown under the bus there. Samuel L. was like, damn, he's really made a name for himself in these movies, but he just hasn't really gotten that critical attention,
which is a shame. Hopefully he gets cast in the Movie Critic and maybe get some love.
Yeah, I think the problem with Samuel L. Jackson though is at a certain point, like I like him a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I think at a certain point he's become like a caricature of himself.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Foul mouth, like always cursing and like doing the Samuel L. Jackson thing. I respect his hustle because I think he is considered like as far as like the amount of movies he's been in, like one of the biggest actors in terms of like box office because he's been a part of all these like franchises and stuff. So I mean, Samuel L. Jackson's
one of the highest grossing, like one of the actors with the most highest grossing filmographies like of all time.
And honestly, he has made comments that like he rather do these Marvel movies than chase, as he said, a motherfucking Oscar. So like, good for him, for like owning it.
Does he have a lifetime achievement Oscar?
I don't think so. No, I think he.
Okay.
At this point, I don't know if he's gonna win one, but like he'll probably get that before anything. Also, Tarantino's movie doesn't have a studio yet, so I'm sure these studios are gonna be like trying to get like his last movie. He had a good time with Sony Pictures. They released Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that made like $377 million worldwide, so he could want to stay with them. But yeah, any studio that's like looking to like release his final film is probably like, this is gonna be huge, even no matter what the subject matter is. Like people are just.
Do you think that it's just gonna sweep like Oscars and Golden Globes because it's kind of like his like send off and like his
Yeah, I mean,
last
time
film,
will
because I mean,
tell.
you know how like Lord of the Rings, I know that was a franchise, but didn't really get much, and then Return of the King got like
King.
10 Oscars. Like, do you think it's going to be something like that, like in terms of what Peter Jackson did?
I can see that. I mean,
could see it.
at least Tarantino has won before, but I can see them being because I mean, we talked about this last week about the Oscars because we were saying like how we don't like career Oscars, like where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
like
Jamie
it's
Lee
less.
Curtis.
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Exactly. Couldn't
It's
vote
less,
that way.
it's less about the project and more
Will
about like,
Smith.
well, they've been in the industry for like this long, like we should give them one. I mean, if it's a really good movie, more power to him. Like sweep, if it's really good. I hope that's the case, but I would hope they would just do it because it's his final, like his last hurrah. Like
I think if he gets any Oscars like for the movie critic, they will be deserved. I don't know that he would even need to be handed any. You know what I mean? Like I think he
Yeah.
will just genuinely earn them. But I'm excited to see. It feels like so far away from it, but I bet you we're only probably a couple of years if he's gonna begin filming in fall. So
I mean,
that-
you
that
have
might-
the Hateful Eight poster behind
yeah,
you.
I was
Too.
thank you for shutting that down.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorite Tarantino. I
one
know
of my favorites, man.
I think that one gets a lot of hate. Hateful Eight, sorry, no pun intended.
Yeah.
But like that's one of my favorite. Like the way that that movie is laid out in terms of like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 is unbelievable. And then even just the little
It's a
change in
masterpiece as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned, too.
I was going to ask you guys what is your favorite Tarantino movie, but I think
I was hoping you would.
Well, that's one.
I was like, is that too much of a curveball to think?
I just Pulp Fiction's so good, but like Reservoir Dogs is probably my favorite overall. And then like give me Kill Bill.
Okay.
I love Kill Bill. So like, I love Jackie Brown, but I know I'm in the minority on Jackie Brown.
I like De Niro and Jackie Brown.
I like
But-
Jackie Brown. It is my least favorite Tarantino, though. That's not
and then-
saying anything. They're
Yeah,
all
I mean, that's
amazing.
like, yeah. I mean, and then our friend Kat told me that our friend Evan showed her Pulp Fiction, and I was like, and that was like her first foray into like Tarantino stuff, and I was like,
I wish.
on paper that feels like the right movie to start with, but then it's so not like some of his other stuff that's like
So
'cause
untraditional
she didn't love it. She was like, oh, I
Yeah.
didn't really like it. I was like, that's a hard one to like lead with. I think I know. I understood.
Here.
It's a hard one to like start off with. I think as your first one, especially if it's been like her point of her life, years like she hasn't watched one of these. Like it's a tough sell if you're not like really if you don't really know about it or like know what you're getting into before you watch it.
I do love Pulp Fiction, but I think that it's so like there's a lot of people that are out there that just go, "Oh, Pulp Fiction's the best movie ever." Why?
It's a total
they're
film
good,
though,
and they
easy
don't-
pick.
It's an easy pick, but they don't
But it is
really
amazing.
appreciate it for maybe the reason that they should, and they just kind of think that it's supposedly supposed to be a great movie.
You're so right.
Yeah,
It's a-
but I think like the reason that I like it is for many of the different reasons, like in terms of like the scene, how they bring in the beginning and then the diner scene at the end,
The
and
nonlinear storytelling
exactly,
is
Exactly.
amazing in that movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
lots of love.
Yeah, it was just funny watching Jackson like soul die, and I was like, yeah, she didn't like it that much. We're like, oh,
Like melted. It was
Like, what's not to like? I get it, it's subjective, but like, still.
I do love Kill Bill as well. I mean, like, and it's so funny too because like it's strange to think that Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2 were supposed to be like one movie because they feel so different from each other. Like
Yeah.
They're so
like,
different.
they're like, I can't even imagine that being one film. It's like, are you sure it was always supposed to be one movie? But apparently it was. But they feel like tonally different. They don't even feel like the same thing at all. But I do love them
No.
both. I mean, you can't go wrong with him. I think. I mean, I like the Hateful Eight. I don't think it's a masterpiece on the level that like Jackson
I
maybe
certainly
you
love
do.
it.
But
Yeah.
like I still think like even the stuff I'm like with him about, it's not even like a strong I think it's like it's still solid work and
Exactly. Bottom tier Tarantino is still miles above some of the
most people.
most people, exactly. Most directors
Yeah.
working. Like
I mean,
honestly.
we haven't even talked about Django or Inglorious Bastards.
Or
That's
Inglourious.
true. Like, I know.
Like, those are two incredible movies.
Those are some
Hollywood,
favorites of a lot
man.
of people. Like
One of
and,
my
you know,
all-time favorite movies.
yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I know that some people are. I mean, I loved it when I first saw it. I think other people in like
Not my
you know,
favorite.
Some people
I
are
know,
hit
I
or
know,
miss.
I know. And I saw that when I saw that movie at a very late night showing. It was really, and it's such a long movie, but I was
That one's
all
too long
in.
for me. That one is too
Yeah.
long.
It was not long enough for me. I watched 2 hours.
I was
Give me
watching
more
more
of these characters
within
interacting.
a movie. I needed more like I was
Right.
watching like a second movie while I was in the theater. I was like, come on, let's move it along.
If it hadn't gone as bonkers as it did in those last few moments, I think it would have lost a lot of people. But even people in the theater, when I went to go see it, like opening night, who were like, oh, like fading, as soon as it took that hard right into like, oh, this isn't going to be exactly what happened with Sharon Tate on that night that
Yeah.
she was murdered. We're going to change that completely and just go off the wall. I mean, it was worth it. I thought that payoff was worth it for me, even though it is a very long movie, though. I can't agree with that.
It is,
yeah.
It is on the longer side, but I rewatched that as recently as it was like July or August. I was in an airport, was stuck in a layover, and I had my laptop with me, threw on Netflix, and I was browsing for like 30 seconds, and I scrolled past that. I was like, yeah, time for another rewatch of this. I found it flew by. I don't know what it is, but I do eat that movie right up. But yeah,
it was the airport. The airport will make it fly by.
That's a great point.
It's true.
I honestly, it's just like such a cop-out answer. I don't know that I could produce a singular favorite Tarantino movie. I feel like I want to mention, this isn't saying this is my favorite, but I don't feel Death Proof gets nearly the love that it deserves.
Death Proof.
I fucking love Death Proof. I rewatched it a few months ago and like solidified how awesome I find that movie, and Kurt in it.
Everyone thinks that Planet Terror is better, and I've always been like, I like Death Proof a lot more. Again, it's very heavy on the dialogue, which is why I love like the first like maybe hour or so or 45 minutes of that movie it's just all his signature like Tarantino dialogue, and it's so good. I think it's really, really underrated.
Very underrated.
I think once he has like all 10 of his movies out, like to go back and like rewatch his stuff once his like entire filmography is complete will be like a really interesting thing to watch, like those movies with like a fresh set of eyes, and like to kind of see his progression as a filmmaker, like from like start to finish. It'll be really cool to watch. I think
they're gonna sell like some like box set 10 movie deal on Amazon for like $1,000.
You're right.
Yeah.
Best believe I order that shit.
Yeah. It's like with all the extended features and shit, Gaius is gonna have that front and center in his
boom,
physical media wall.
Yeah. So we usually talk about box office at the end, but today is a little different because this movie just came out and did not do well at all. I knew we were in trouble a little bit when they started throwing the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman cameo in the TV spot. So I'm like,
trailer.
Yeah, I was like, they're desperate to go see it.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that until now.
And then I knew we were in further trouble when we were doing our box office predictions for Shazam, and Jackson was like, I didn't even know it was coming out this weekend. So like that, so that is how much awareness was out there.
And I pay attention to shit, and I did not.
Yeah.
For Shazam, Fury of the Gods. But yeah, it opened to $30.5 million for the weekend. It's down considerably from like I said 52 in our last episode. It was actually 54.3 million the first one opened to. So that is a huge
prediction. I was like,
oh no. My prediction was I was 40. I was being conservative. I even thought that was low. And
I don't know what I was thinking with 44.
You ended up at 44. What went wrong here?
I think you hit the nail on the head. We talked about this briefly earlier, but like the marketing just wasn't there, or it was originally, and then it kind of died off after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
I think that like being in Los Angeles, I saw a lot of marketing for it. So fair. I don't know if they might have kind of sequestered their marketing to specific geographical locations, and like people in LA don't really give a shit about DC. So it's like maybe that was not really the right spot to kind of market the movie. But I think that this was like a great HBO, like this was a perfect movie to watch during quarantine, and like great sort of thing that you kind of sit down with your family. It's a fun watch, but it's not like, oh my God, I can't wait for this movie to come out. I think that like this specific, like I like the first one because I think it's a little bit sort of gung-ho and a little bit they don't really take themselves too seriously. But I think they took it too far in this sense, where now it's like the whole thing, everyone just thinks it's kind of a joke. And to have that many leading characters that all are kids that become adults, like there's just too many like points that are trying to get across. There's just too many characters to be like, all right, who's who, who's what, like.
I
it
hear
just
they
becomes a
lean
lot.
into the silliness a lot in this one as well, just from reviews I've heard. And like it's very joke heavy, comedy heavy. And I feel like that is a trope in superhero movies in general that people are kind of getting sick of. And it's a lesson I thought they'd have learned a long time ago that that's not how
Yeah.
a good way to, have your movie taken seriously if that's what you're trying to do. And I've heard that complaint a lot that it's very joke heavy. It doesn't feel like there's no tension. There's a joke cutting in between every, intense scene or a scene where there's stakes. That could be something maybe perhaps in terms of its reviews. Because what's it sitting at with
It has
a
a 50, I think, a 52% on Rotten
there you go.
Tomatoes. The audience score is 88%, but the first movie has a 94% fresh rating from critics.
Okay, so
They like that movie a lot more. It got a B+ cinema score compared to the A for the first movie.
An A, the first one?
Or the first one did.
Really?
I
B
was
plus
I was
sounds generous from what I've heard.
I was telling Jackson that, like, even though it was like it grossed on like the lower tier of like what DC was doing, it's still like it had like a $72 million profit for the first movie, and that's because they kept the budget pretty low. It was $100 million budget. This one's slightly bigger. I looked it up after we did record our last one. And it's $110 million budget.
Yeah, they upped their
but
CGI budget for this one, and they got Helen Mirren, so they're like,
yeah. And I mentioned with Jackson too. I think announcing will be the new ECU, while these other movies are like still like awaiting release. Like this one, I know I mentioned that The Flash is like an outlier because they say that movie is very good. Like everyone who has seen it is saying
I'm
that
very
it's like
interested to see
excellent.
what
But with something like this movie and then like Aquaman, it's like when you announce all these new plans for what the DCU is going to be, and you're not being clear about like, are we going to use these characters anymore? Is this it? Are these movies like pointless now because you're going to start over? I think that it gives people less incentive to go see it. I think that could be a big reason. I mean, that's a huge drop off from the first movie, and to their credit though, I feel so bad because I actually read Rachel Zegler, who's in the movie. She was in West Side Story. I guess she read some of the reviews. Like everyone on Twitter is like tearing the movie apart. Like a lot of like not like anti DC fans, but especially fans who like Zack Snyder. Somehow he got thrown to this mess again. Where they're like, where they're like,
okay, people trashing Zack Snyder for Shazam too.
Well, no, it's one of those things where they're doing that, like, oh, like the reason you guys have a movie that's failing is because you like fucked up the Snyderverse and like you guys shouldn't have done this and that and like. So she wrote.
So it's people who love Zack Snyder.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So what she wrote, which is cool, you got to defend your movie, but I'm pretty sure that she probably was the target of more like hateful comments. She said, "Some people out there and just being senselessly mean, and it's unnecessary. And I know, if you can't handle the heat and all that nonsense, and you're right, but our film is actually very good. It's just cool to hate on fun nowadays. That's okay. We're good."
Yo, this seems like a little kid who's like, "It's good, guys. I promise."
Sorry, Rachel. I don't.
Don't be mean.
Yeah. The director also said I'm paraphrasing his quote, but he's like, he went from having one of the highest like Rotten Tomato scores for the first movie of his career to having the lowest with this one. He has, this is a guy that was directing like horror movies before he did Shazam. He did like Lights Out, which made a decent amount of money.
That's right.
And then he got attached to this, and he said like the last 5 years of my life has been Shazam, and he said that he doesn't regret making movies, but he's ready to like take a step back. And he said the reason for that is the toxic fandom that kind of comes up when fans are like, your movie's trash, or like, we knew your movie was going to be trash. Like he was like, to kind of hear that all weekend. And Zachary Levi is actually defending the movie too. They're all kind of coming out on the defense, which is fine. It's your movie, defend it. But like, her quote in particular is like really like, it felt like a little kid that was like, like, everyone doesn't have to love your movie. Like it's fine.
I also don't think it's toxic. I mean, a lot of people, especially on social media, probably word this in a way and kind of gang up in a way that is contrived as toxic. But like, I don't think that like mass hate on a movie that is probably objectively not great is considered toxic. At least I don't think so. So it kind of seems like poor sportsmanship a little bit on the behalf, but I get like wanting to defend something that you put your time and effort into. But like, that's the thing with art. When you are part of the creative process, you open yourself up to criticism, and it's not your job to tell other people that your product is good, because they're going to make up their minds themselves. So hearing that, I'm just like, okay, whatever, guys. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't
agree.
blame them for wanting to defend it though.
Defend their movie. If you would have told me a few months ago that Dungeons and Dragons, which is getting like really good early reviews, like that would be getting better feedback than Shazam: Fury of the Gods, I would have like smacked you in the face. But like that's what's happening right now. That feedback
Is
on
that kinda
Dungeons and Dragons
sad?
so far is like crazy good, and this is like not.
That's
Wouldn't have
sad.
called that because out of all the
No.
March releases, I was like Dungeons and Dragons is going to be the one that's like, and I maybe not anymore. It's this one.
Which is funny because they actually haven't had any marketing at all.
Yeah, so I feel like they didn't have. I think they just recently had faith in the movie where they were like they screened it early, and then they were like, "Hey, this is
They're like,
actually
we got
good."
Chris Pine, we're good.
Yeah, and they're probably like Paramount's like, no, throw some more money into this. I know it's like out in like a week or two, but like throw more money into the marketing.
While
Yeah.
I was in New York briefly, I did see some advertisements in Times Square for Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, it's probably equally spread out between that and Shazam. But locally and like on TV, I haven't seen anything. But while I was in New York, they were giving Dungeons and Dragons some love on the screens.
Nice.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. Well, this is probably the end of Shazam in like DC. Like, I don't see them using him in the DCU moving forward. I mean, this isn't going to make $100 million here. I mean, it's going to
No.
have a pretty big fall next weekend.
Yeah, I'm predicting that too.
Now, how embarrassing too. Like March has been like full of like all these movies who have had like franchise best openings. Like Creed 3 had a franchise best opening. Scream 6 had a franchise best opening. And poor Shazam is like
John Wick is supposed to do the same thing.
John Wick Chapter 4 is like tracking to have like the biggest opening of the franchise so far. Might even go higher.
Shazam had no excuse. Should have
like
done better, man.
And like one thing they did do that was smart is that originally it was going to come out the same weekend as Avatar: The Way of Water, and they got it out of the way of that. I guess that was the only good thing they did.
But that movie was gonna make money consistently every weekend, no matter what. So I think that if they had put it out there, like a lot of people waited to go see Avatar, and I think it actually might have done better that weekend than this one.
It might have benefited from like the December like Christmas boost a bit if
people
like
being in the theaters and stuff. I don't blame them for not wanting to compete with Avatar though. So hindsight's 2020, right? But I never would have guessed this would have been the time. Like I would have thought March would have been a safe release for a superhero movie, but that turned out to be wrong.
Yeah, I feel bad. I mean, I do feel bad for the actors that are trying to defend their movie. Like, yeah, you got to defend your craft and you got to be proud of what you put out there, at least hopefully. But just like Jackson was saying, ideally. Ideally. But just like you were saying, Jackson, like, I mean, once you start getting some comments, and it's not necessarily hate, like, yeah, there's going to be the offend comment where it's like, I don't like you in this, but the general consensus seems to just be most people just didn't enjoy it. And I don't think that that's, like you were saying, toxic. I just think that they put out a movie that is generally not liked, and it sucks. Okay. Like, and that's okay. If it's like a piece of art, like when Van Gogh put out something that was bad, not 50, 60 million people are looking at it. And so like at that point, like it's not like consistently put on blast. But for this, most people kind of know about it. They'll go on social media and they'll just be like, yeah, I agree that it wasn't good. So that sucks.
And all the signs pointed to it going this way. They said when it entered tracking at like the low end, it never budged. It never budged from that. Like there was nothing that like pushed it any further up at all. It was like they knew that it wasn't gonna open well. And like we mentioned it before, but like it's interesting that you said the marketing here. I mean, I've seen TV spots and stuff for it, but like Deadline said that like, hey, they really did put marketing muscle into it because they had like that in-person trailer that they revealed at Comic-Con, but that was back in July. And then there was just like nothing. And like maybe I was been watching the wrong stuff and hadn't seen like the right like advertisements for it, but like it seemed like they weren't 100% confident in the movie that they had, like as far as like really marketing it and pushing it out there. I mean, it's never a good sign when someone says, I didn't know your movie was opening this weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
Especially when he's the co-host of a movie podcast. Like, I had no idea that was coming out.
Nope. Caught me by surprise. Like, I'm going to chalk that up to me being equally inattentive, because I definitely would have seen the release date on like posters and shit, and equally bad marketing. So, yeah.
Well, you know, everyone involved in that movie, keep your head up. I'm sure you'll get another big film down the line. Ellen Mirren's fine. She's not letting this at all.
Yeah, I'd like to see Zachary Levi.
Lucy Liu's gonna be fine too.
Yeah, I forgot she was in that.
I forgot she was in that.
I was trying to think of who the other like big mainstream like female cast member was. I was like, I remember Helen Mirren, but who's the other one?
Forgot
Yeah.
she was in it.
Zachary Levi's probably got another Christian football movie coming here pretty soon. So
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Is he already in one?
Yeah,
Which one?
he's in the Underdog. It's like
Underdog, yeah.
Corner
It came out-
story, but
it came out
it's
last
got
year,
some
right?
heavily
Or the year before that?
Christian front values.
It's a
No.
a faith-based movie, and those tend to do pretty
Right.
well.
Your favorite,
And-
Gaius.
Oh yeah, they come out of nowhere. I'm like, I don't like how that makes so much money. I'm like, I didn't even know where
The
the
Bible Belt, baby.
I guess so.
Right.
All right, so one last bit of things for news. Gladiator 2 is like really making strides with casting.
Hell
I didn't
yeah.
care. I didn't care about this. Like I'm cool with like Paul Mescal being cast in it. Like After Sun's a great movie. Jackson and I have talked about it. He just got nominated for an Oscar for it, and he's gonna be playing the lead in Gladiator 2. But I still wasn't like stoked on it because it's like it's been so long since Gladiator came out that I didn't know if anyone was really clamoring for a sequel. But then we got Barry Keoghan, right? I always get this last name. Barry Keoghan, who was also just recently nominated for the Banshees of Inisherin, and Denzel Washington also in talks for this too, which will like it reunites him with Ridley Scott because they made American Gangster together. I'm excited for. I mean, both casting news was really good. I was more intrigued by the Denzel Washington one because that to me elevates this to a different level. And now I'm interested in where this is going.
Of course, Denzel does that.
I was excited since Paul. I was excited just to see it was getting made because, like, even though I think there's been like a bad history of like these legacy sequels after Top Gun, like I feel like this might be more in the caliber of Top Gun Maverick in that sort of sense as a legacy sequel. So I was kind of like interested in the beginning. Then Paul Mescal gets nominated hot off his, or not nominated, cast hot off his nomination. Barry Keoghan was an awesome addition, especially like highlighting that he was going to be the villain right off the get-go, like perfect. And then, like you said, then Denzel like launched my excitement for that into the stratosphere. Really excited for Gladiator 2. Oh, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, here we go.
I'm not. Yeah.
Oh, we're different. Okay.
I like the way he was bracing himself.
You're a Gladiator like fan at heart, like don't want it to be touched.
I love the first Gladiator.
So do I,
It's just so amazing. And so to me, it kind of seems like a little bit of a cash grab. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But I mean, when I think of cash grabs, I typically think of something like Zoolander 2. Which is just like kind of straight up just like we're gonna make a second one, everyone's gonna think they're gonna love it, and then it kind of just goes down the toilet. But this is like that movie is sort of such a standalone masterpiece that to me I can't imagine this, like if they're gonna make something like Gladiator 2 and that's gonna be the name of it, it feels like it's just it's gonna be a completely different movie with the same character names. Like I can't imagine that they have the ability to take this story so long into the future, like in terms of times of the movies coming out, and have it feel the same, because it just feels like we're just going to go into it. And Top Gun, you're able to do it because you have 80s movies, you have Tom Cruise, you have sort of like the same pilots, fighter pilots, whatever that is. You're kind of able to mimic that in certain areas just because of what the movie was about. This one, I don't know how they're going to pull this off, and I'm excited that they have some big names coming into it, but like to me, I don't know if I'm like I'm waiting for a trailer just to see what it's going to look like.
I put my faith in Ridley that he's attached, he's making it. Like I don't know if he wrote the first one, but the fact that it's his project that he is helming the sequel to is like, if it was anybody else, I would be exactly in your boat, Owen. I'd be like, I'm not even going to pay attention to that because they're just going to bastardize the original. But the fact that it's Ridley and he's still pumping out like pretty big scope, high budgeted movies, even though criminally they were underperforming at the box office. I know that they're going to hand him a massive budget for this one. I know he can do wonderful, like he can handle a big budget and a big A-list cast. So that's why I'm like as excited for it as I am.
But is this a case of like what Quentin Tarantino was just talking about? I mean, how old's Ridley Scott? Like 90?
Like 82 or 80.
His last movie was what? The Last Duel?
Duel and House of Gucci.
Last Duel and House of Gucci. Did you see those?
I watched it and I was like, yeah, it's kind of an interesting plot, but like
not Gladiator.
I probably won't watch it again.
Fair enough.
No.
I understand that. Yeah. Gladiator.
I love Ridley Scott. Do you think he's still got enough juice in him?
Like I said, yeah, I double down on him. What do you think, Gaius?
Okay.
I mean, he's still putting stuff out there. I mean, I liked House of Gucci. We mentioned
So
I
did
mentioned it earlier on the other one we recorded. Like I liked everything about it except for Jared Leto. Jackson actually likes Jared Leto in it.
I actually liked him. That might change, but
And Back to the Blockbuster, we've had some very interesting Jared Leto conversations.
Jared Leto, you would think
Oh.
that we just hate on him like so much early
Well,
episodes.
because we have.
Because we have, yeah.
yeah, it's
And the
morbid
last
time.
duel, I actually did like the last duel. I don't know if it has
Morbid time. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good.
I don't know if I have like the same like affinity for it. Of course, as like Gladiator. I mean, he hasn't. I mean, that's a hard
No.
one to top.
Top.
I guess the difference between that movie and like Top Gun, like Maverick, having a sequel that so many years later, at least Top Gun Maverick had like its original star still attached to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, of course you can't have Russell Crowe, right? But like Russell
He's
Crowe
got
is so
300 pounds to
yeah,
play.
there's that. And you know, I was trying not to say that.
I wouldn't be surprised if they use some de-aging CGI and try and bring him back as like a spiritual figure,
kind
like
of.
a flashback. I would be on board to see that. De-aging stuff, if they do it convincing.
I mean,
I'd like
they
to see
haven't
that.
seen a good de-aging yet.
The
And I
one
think
that
we're still
in
5 to
the-
10 years away.
The one in the
Yeah.
trailers for the new Indiana Jones movie looks decent. Like they
It
de-aged
does.
Harrison Ford in certain
Yeah.
scenes. I mean, but yeah,
There's some touch-ups to do.
it is still one of those things where it looks fake usually, where it's hard to be like,
Well,
yeah, I know
it's
this.
like in The Irishman when you have a like pretty much almost 90-year-old Robert De Niro trying to act like he's beating someone up and kicking the shit out of them,
Right.
and it looks like he's an old man, but his face
Yeah.
looks like he's in his 30s. I was like,
You know what standout that is for me though? I don't know why this just popped into my head, but I remember being so impressed with how young they made Robert Downey Jr. look in, is it Infinity War, where he has that scene, that kind of like
Oh, that-
holographic scene with his
scene.
parents?
oh,
That
shit
was
was convincing.
really impressive. It depends on who's helming it, I guess. So if they're able to make it look good, even if it's not perfect, I would give them the benefit or like the leeway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they just need.
no,
some
was that it? Was that in Spider-Man? Because that was when he was like talking about the
Or is it Civil War?
Is it Civil War? It's wherever he has that like it's like memory 3D thing, right?
I can't remember. I thought it was Infinity War. It could have been one with Spider-Man in it though.
I
Anyway,
thought it might have been Civil War because where they introduced Spider-Man. We'll figure it
Right.
out. We'll get back to
there could be. Besides the point though, they made him
Yeah,
look
it
young.
looked really good. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. So I'm in for it. Jackson's in for it. Owen needs to see a trailer first.
I get that. It's good to be cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably was in the same boat as Owen until I heard about the Denzel Washington stuff because I was
Until
like,
Denzel came
well,
aboard.
no, because like he also is kind of picky about what he wants to do sometimes. And it's like, all right,
What was
like
his last movie? Was it
was it
Macbeth?
Oh yeah, that was the tragedy of Macbeth.
Which I
think
saw,
was he
and I
got nominated for
fucking
an
loved.
Oscar for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he's done anything since then.
I mean, this is a guy that's also doing like the Equalizer 3, so I can't say that he's always picky.
Hey,
Right.
I like the Equalizer.
That's I do too, but sometimes I think that's a big get. I mean, I know he's worked with Ridley Scott before. Like, I mean, we're talking about like movies that he's done. American Gangster is a great Ridley Scott movie, I think, and I still think he still has it. I mean, I don't think he's.
Yeah.
I think most of these guys who are older now, like him, Scorsese, Spielberg, I still think they have like enough creative like juice to crank out movies. I was saying that about Clint Eastwood too. I know the last thing he did was the mule, but like, I mean,
Isn't it
he's
Cry
like,
Wow.
oh yeah, that one, yeah, actually,
I
yeah,
forgot
so
that even came out.
I kind of forgot.
Yeah,
I skipped right back to the mule. Yeah, I forgot about Cry Macho, but like also old and still like making a lot of stuff. So I mean,
True.
92, bro. Crazy.
that's crazy and still
That's gonna hurt, man, when he goes. And then Ridley probably not long after. I'm actually hoping Ridley is alive to finish Gladiator 2, man.
dude,
Because
we
like,
have,
Seriously.
we have
I'm not
so
kidding. Wood
many-
that even just said that.
we have so many legacy directors around the same age that it's like, oh, I don't know how much like
It's gonna be a tough.
The In
It's gonna be
Memoriam at the Oscars is going to be like 2 hours.
long. Yeah, that's gonna be rough.
Hopefully they do it justice. Last
yeah.
year was a little
They all I don't,
contentious.
they always forget someone. And like
We
someone made
didn't
a good
cover that.
someone made a good point. They're like, how come there's like one intern that's like, yo, let's make sure that we include like everyone in the in memoriam segment because there's
Right.
always someone that gets left out, and then they go like, oh, well, we're sorry.
Who got left out this year?
Well, they left
few
out
people.
a few people. They left out Paul Sorvino, which I don't know why they did. He was a pretty big actor.
I have
Sorvino's
a
dad.
bookmark point for after this conversation.
Elena
Hutch-
Hutchins, they left her out.
It was crazy. Tom Sizemore, you're right.
Tom Sizemore, but that one's controversial because Tom Sizemore did have a lot of problems, and he was involved in like some domestic abuse like later in his career. So I could see maybe that's why they left out. They left out Anne Heche.
He didn't die.
Right.
I know it's true. They left out Anne Heche too, who also,
That's a big one too.
big one. Even though I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff surrounding how she died, but like you're remembering them for the work and not because of, unless they do something completely problematic. I know that's
Well, yeah,
like,
I mean,
a tough
when
one.
Harvey Weinstein dies in jail, they're
not gonna. They won't put him in.
Right.
Yeah. And
Nah.
I kind of question if they'll throw Woody Allen in one too at this point. Like, it's a tough one, but like
I
some
don't
of the people
know, man.
they even left out an actress that was in Triangle of Sadness. She passed away, and that movie was
That's
nominated.
another one, dude.
That movie was
Yeah.
nominated, and they left her out of it.
Like
So, yeah.
crazy.
I don't know.
So-
They has to be some intern that's like, oh, oops, like
But-
maybe we should like double check.
That point that I bookmarked to come back to. So I did see that they do have like a full length in memoriam version on their actual like the Academy Awards website,
So
and they shouted that out during the ceremony. I think they only wanted to like put as many as they could in for Lenny Kravitz's like performance so that it wasn't running on longer. So there
Okay.
is somewhere out there a full complete version, but it's still like I would just say play the whole thing at the ceremony. Who cares
Yeah.
if it's a few
the
extra
show,
minutes?
the
Like
show's already long. It's already over at 3.5 hours. Like
Exactly.
a couple extra minutes of like showcasing people who passed away that you should probably showcase won't be a.
Mhm.
yeah,
big
I'm sure
thing.
those people are featured in the real or the full version anyway.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a good
crazy, though.
opportunity for a segue because we just lost Lance Reddick, who is a
Yeah.
co-star in the series that we're here to talk about.
Oh,
which
that
I don't know about
hurts.
you boys, that one did suck, man. It was such from out of nowhere.
I think unexpected to everyone that heard it.
Yeah,
When I got the email, I was like, I thought I read it wrong.
do we know?
I mean,
Yeah, what's going
I don't
on?
know. No, not yet. I mean, I tried to look on TMZ.
He was only 60.
60 years old. And I think he was still like fresh off of doing some press for John Wick
Yeah.
Chapter 4. Like a lot of people like on Instagram who were friends with him were like basically like, I just saw you. Like, like they were like completely devastated by it. It's
I
crazy.
think this
mean,
might be another like aneurysm or something like that because it was
Yeah, something.
yeah. I mean,
crazy,
he
crazy
wasn't
that.
like didn't look like he's ever been in poor health. So
Yeah. And this is a guy that, I mean, going back to like The Wire, and like he's one of those people like character actors that pops up in like so many different things that you love.
Middle of the wire right now, actually, and I love him.
are you really?
Yeah, dude, season 2 almost at the end of her.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone paid tribute to him at the John Wick Chapter 4 LA premiere. I mean, that has to be crazy to like, you want to celebrate your movie that's coming out, and a movie that's already getting a great reception, like has the best reviews so far, I think, of all of them already. 93% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Some even saying that it's the greatest action movie ever made. I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
Well, I guess we'll find
Okay.
out this week. But yeah, that has to be bittersweet though. They like to you're wanting to celebrate this movie and then have that attached to it. But yeah, completely unexpected. Like
Yeah.
I was
Tragic.
completely
That sucks.
completely shocked.
You guys ever seen a movie he's in with Ian Stevens called The Guest?
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh,
Oh,
my
it's
god,
so
that's
good.
awesome, bro.
Dude,
Have you seen that one, Owen?
I haven't.
Oh,
Oh,
dude,
that's a
put
good
that
one
on
to
your
deep
watch
dive for
list.
sure.
Yeah,
I-
that is a good.
I
Dude,
might
you're right.
dive that one. It's such a good movie.
Ooh,
Like,
okay.
Underrated.
I-
Like, doesn't get the spotlight it deserves, man. Fucking
Yeah,
sweet movie.
I thought I was gonna be watching some like trash throwaway like B movie, and was
Surprisingly
completely blown
smart.
away by how good it was. Yeah, it's so good.
When I bet you
Nice.
eat it out, man.
Okay.
I think-
yeah.
I think
That's
it'll-
on top of it. And Lance has a good chunk of a role in there.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think you would like it. Won't be a Mr. Brooks situation, I don't think.
All right.
There's lots of love in that one.
All right, let's get to Jackson. This is you came up with this idea for this episode. Let's get to the nitty gritty of as we have John Wick
Certainly.
Chapter 4, like we said, opening this weekend. Feel like a good time to look back at this franchise and its influence on other action movies. I didn't realize this, so you brought it up. What the action movie landscape looked like before 2014. There was like a really
Right? A little
bad
scary.
lull. It was not good. And then in this post kind of John Wick world, like a lot of other movies have tried to copy it, and for better or worse. But it's crazy that it's had this much influence. Something that started in 2014, not that long ago. Now
10
now-
years next year, that was 12
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, now 4 movies deep, with like 2 spin-offs on the way. One's a TV series, and then the Ballerina with Ana de Armas. Like,
Mm.
you would have not expected a movie that the first one only made $43 million when it came out. it would turn into a franchise that has so far grossed $587 million worldwide since the release of the first one, and that doesn't even count how massive
Damn.
part 4 is about to be.
Right.
But yeah, really excited to get into like kind of what inspired you to kind of take this
Yeah, very
direction
much
with this
so.
episode.
So naturally, yeah, as you mentioned earlier, we were talking about some themed episodes to hit on. I don't know if somewhere down the line you mentioned that Owen was a big fan of the series, but that definitely solidified us, dedicating an episode towards John Wick. But it was running through my mind when I was looking at the release date of some movies coming up that we could like select and highlight to talk about. I was thinking about John Wick, fourth movie in the series. At the time, in my opinion, has changed even from the first half that I just watched. I remember having like mixed reception to 3, but no doubt, regardless of that, it was still an amazing, original, like revamped sort of action trilogy, the likes of which we hadn't really seen in a long time. I would say probably since like the first Jason Bournes.
Yeah.
Tying that
Yeah.
back into the action landscape before John Wick. So as you mentioned, 2014, there was that era, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, love it or hate it, of shaky cam action footage that
Quick cuts.
quick cutting. You can't tell what the fuck is going on in an action scene. And although like I think the Jason Bourne series like should get the credit for like popularizing that like directing method or editing method that utilizes it in a good way for the most part. There's definitely some scenes that are choppy, but Jason Bourne, and much in the same way that John Wick was a very influential action series that many tried to mimic, usually to poor effect, and very much catapulted this shaky cam effect into like gun-based action movies for years and years to come. I feel like until John Wick came around and really brought things back to basics. Like the first John Wick movie is like super basic plot. There's nothing too extravagant going on. There's not even really much of like a romance in it, even though like his motivation is very much tied to his wife. It is just John Wick killing people for the majority of the movie, and that's all you want. So yeah, I think to like highlight how influential John Wick, because I don't know if I could even do it justice. Like as you mentioned, you can just see the impact that these 3 movies have had in movies in the last 10 years. And I think for better to drag us out of this shaky cam landscape that we were stuck in for so long. I thought it breathed new life into action cinema, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, John Wick is just one of those series that I could probably watch it at any time, regardless of the last time that I saw it. And I mean, it's one of those things that I continue to look up certain scenes on YouTube, and I'll still watch different clips here and there. I think one of the things that works for me is just the professionalism in which they did things. And I have to respect Keanu for everything that he's done. I mean, he really took it seriously, and he took his training seriously. And the director, I don't really know the whole backstory behind it, but they basically were like, we're going to do this and we're going to do this right. And I think that with all of those quick cut things, yes, this trope of sort of a guy that can't be killed, special agent sort of thing, like James Bond sort of style, like
you've seen it a million times.
Yeah, I've seen it a million times, but it's like we've never really seen why they're so feared or why they're so good at what they do. And Jason Bourne is just kind of like, yeah, we know he's a good fighter, but like with the quick cut hand-to-hand combat, you can't really tell that he's super skilled. You just know that in the end he wins. In this, you can see the exact, like, it kind of brings out like a little bit of like boyish, I love Call of Duty first person shooter kind of stuff, where it's like you were looking at the way that he's loading these guns, you're seeing the precision and how he's like killing people. You see like it looks realistic and it still is insanely impressive. And it's just one of those things where like every time I see it, Keanu is a badass and he's unkillable. And it just is so cool to see. And this whole story of the Continental and sort of this League of Assassins, it's believable because the way that they've done things before the past, it's like, oh, he gets sent to kill like topple government kind of thing. Like it's not just like, oh, he's an assassin who's going to go kill some guy who made a bomb somewhere.
There's
like, no, this is
stakes and implications.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it just is like they have rules, no killing on the continental ground. Like the way that they've kind of set everything up just is so enticing, and it really just makes for having a simple story that all you really need is, hey, this is the motivation of a character, here is the end game of a character, and here's what happened to him.
The carnage in between.
And let's see what happened. Yeah, carnage in between. Perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And like I think one of the things that's great as well is that the respect for John Wick that the villains give. Is like
Yes.
when the bad guy in the movie knows that John Wick is after them, they're like, well, we're fucked.
There's some laugh out loud scenes for the like, for instance, in the first one, when main boss Vigo is asking Aurelio on like Wazama why he struck his son, and he's like, well, Vigo, the car he stole and the dog he killed belonged to John Wick, and Vigo's just like, oh. And then I laugh every time I see it because it is funny, but it's kind of like John Wick in a sense is like Vader, where like everyone, before you know why he's such a badass to be feared, everyone in the universe kind of gives you that impression that they know he's not a man to be fucked with, and they do it so good in like just the most subtle sort of ways, and then you come to find out why he has this reputation, and I think that's a great approach to take with that character.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys pointed out the simplicity of the story, because it is a very simple story, but they've managed to, like, I know we've kind of harped on like universe building sometimes, but they've been able to like expand this world in a very interesting way that doesn't feel
I
like
applaud them for that.
that doesn't feel forced. Like
It doesn't feel forced at all, which I'm so happy about.
Yeah, I am too. Like every entry, like every so far, like with 2 and 3, like I felt necessary, and then everything that happens in it feels necessary. And like, you know, I talked about cash grabs. I don't necessarily think that this was one. Like the first movie, decent business in theaters, but it became a bigger hit. Like, you know, when it came to like home viewing and stuff. Like I don't really think this was really based on like, oh, let's just kind of milk this for all the money it's worth. I think they were genuinely like, this is a very interesting story. Let's keep it going. And I think that's why each one has worked. And I also want to point out too that you, Owen, you said that, you know, they said they want to do this legit. They want to do. I think what helps is that Chad Stahelski and David Leitch are both former stuntmen,
right?
And I think that is why impact. That the way they chose, and especially the first, I mean, in all of them, but like they were directing together for that first movie, and they wanted to have like all the action scenes look legitimate, and I think that comes from their like stunt work background, and they were really big about having like wide angles. They wanted you to see Keanu Reeves doing as much as he was physically able to do. They said that they were like, they said it's interesting because even though they started their career as stuntmen, they were like, we didn't want to use his stuntman as much as we could because we wanted to like show that he could actually.
Isn't that ironic?
That he could actually do this, and I think that Keanu Reeves has always been kind of dedicated to that kind of stuff. Like this is also the first time that Keanu Reeves has been a part of the franchise that has influenced action movies. Like if you go back to like The Matrix, like that, The Matrix was like we kind of made that more. They made the wire work thing popular. Like that was in like that appeared in like so many movies after The Matrix, and not done nearly as well. Not done nearly as well. Bullet time, like all that stuff. So like he's always kind of been on the forefront of like we always give a lot of credit to Tom Cruise, as we should, because he is a showman. But like Keanu Reeves in his own right, especially when it comes to these franchises, is as well. You can tell how much he cares about. I mean, there's a fun video of him and Halle Berry doing their weapons training for the third movie.
I've seen it. Yeah,
I was just watching that scene with them, man.
They are both like in training. They are both like beasts. Like you could tell they're like, all right, we want this to look as good as it possibly. And I mean, I've talked about that scene so much from the third movie. Like it was like free in my brain because it's just so like
him and Halle Berry tearing up in Casablanca. I just was watching and I was like amazed, and I hadn't seen it since theaters. I was like, God damn, this is choreographed and filmed and
like let's throw in a dog for good measure. Like what?
Well, I think a huge like factor in it is that it's rated R, and like there's so like Jason Bourne series PG-13. There's not as many things you can show. Like yes, there's some gruesome parts, but in terms of a guy with a shotgun getting blown away in the chest, like you can't show that in a PG-13 movie, and it's important in this movie. And like it also is fucking sick. Like
the violence is so hard hitting in 3, man. Like, I was even more so than 1 and 2. Like don't know, or the first 2 they must have been rated R. I should have.
The second one has, I think he kills like 135 people or something in that movie. Like there's
like kill count between the first 2.
There's kill counts on like on the internet where you can see his accuracy percentage, what weapons he's used to kill things. It's actually really, really cool, and it shows just his mastery. But I also think they've kept the story simple by keeping the characters simple. Like they've only brought back a handful of characters in each one. Like in terms of universe building, that's super important. Like you got the head of the Continental, you got Lance Reddick, you got Keanu Reeves. And besides that, like you added Halle Berry, but all the other
Jimmy the
characters
Cop.
yeah,
I love him, even though we don't see much of him. He's a small detail, but
yeah, no, he's
it goes
great
a long
too.
way.
Yeah, but like also the villains they add, they introduce and then they kill off. And that's important, I think, is like sometimes you could add like an overlying Thanos character where it's like this is the head of the syndicate or something like that, which just kind of molds down the importance of the character that they're fighting now. So I think that was a great way to progress the story along. And then obviously you have all the goons that come along that just get annihilated.
Cannon fodder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One thing that I do think really benefits like how the John Wick movies get better with each sequel, if you're on that opinion, even if they're not better, they're probably just as good as the last one, is although they do start off simplistic, the creators do a great job of slowly integrating more and more complex themes and stuff into the movies and slowly adding more characters here, more characters there, more rules to the Assassin's Guild and the Continental, not in a way that feels like arbitrary and randomly thrown in there, but just stuff that we wouldn't have had a glimpse of in the last movie that now makes sense to go explore in the sequel. And I think they've done a great job at managing that instead of throwing all the rules and all the nuances of that universe into the first movie, instead of just, slowly incrementally showing us more, which I'm excited to see how the fourth one expands.
Yeah, no, 100%.
On that stuff.
I think 2 for me is just the best one. I
agree.
Think
2's my favorite.
2 is just, it's so good. The whole scene in, I guess it's Rome, when the catacombs and just like
I was watching that today.
Well, I love the scene. My favorite scene probably in the entire series is when he's choosing his weapons, like basically setting himself up for that, and he goes to the sommelier.
Yeah,
he's picking he's like, I need something bold, like and just kind of talking about it in terms of food and wine.
Right.
And I just
Scene is
love that scene because the dialogue is so simple, but it shows you everything that you need to know. And like, I don't know, the preparation's so good. Common, not my favorite actor, but does a great job in that movie.
I think it's a great addition to that movie, though. Consider it a professional courtesy.
The only scene the only scene that's a little bit ridiculous is when they're shooting at each other in that crowded, like
rave.
Common's like,
yeah,
and no one says anything when there's like 30 bullets being fired. Like, that's a little ridiculous, but besides that, it's
glad you bring that up, because that's a point I meant to say. There's two things that I think make this series work as well as it does, and the other thing is that it is ridiculous, like you just said, but movies aren't taking themselves too seriously. They border that line of being intense and being taken seriously with ridiculous action drama that would never fly in the real world, and I think they ride that line really good. Like, for instance, that scene you just described, just the sheer amount of people John Wick kills, the amount of damage he can take and still keep going, like, it is obviously well beyond anyone's limit,
human capacity.
Exactly, but it makes sense because it's John Wick, and I think the creators, the directors get that the audience is in on that, and it wouldn't work if that line wasn't written as so well as it was.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, it's crazy too to think that like this franchise like almost didn't happen too. Like, it took a while for them to find like theatrical distribution for the first movie. Keanu Reeves hadn't been in a hit in a while. I kind of forgot. So I'll be honest on here. I didn't see this movie in theaters, the first one, because I thought it looked at first, and I can happily say that I was wrong. It looked like a throwaway, like almost direct to video kind of action movie that happened.
I don't blame you for thinking that.
Theatrical release. So I was like, I'm not seeing this. It wasn't until honestly the second movie opened so much higher than the first one. I was like, oh, like, I guess like people were really paying attention to this
deal
movie.
Yeah,
what's going on. So then that's when I went back and saw it, and I was like, oh, okay, this is
holy shit,
actually legit. And I wish I would have given it a chance and saw it in theaters. They did not want to give it was 2 first-time directors. They were like, you guys are former stuntmen, we don't want to put that much money into a project like this. Keanu Reeves hasn't had a hit in a while.
Any idea?
I'm not sure. Lionsgate, the one that eventually picked it up. And I'm trying to see, like, what was Keanu Reeves doing before 2014? He really hadn't done anything in a bit.
It's a great point. I can't think of anything past the third movie.
Oh, God.
Is that 90s or 2000s? I think
it came out of 2000s. So let's see. I gotta scroll a little bit further back.
Like, when's the Matrix 3? Like 2005, 2006?
So before, oh God, this is really bad. He was in a movie called Extreme Pursuit that went straight to video. He's in 47 Ronin. I've never seen it, but it flopped.
Oh,
I do
my
remember
Oh,
that.
that's a slow burn.
And
Oh,
honestly,
okay.
and then he actually had like a break. So there in 2008 he did The Day the Earth Stood Still. That was one of his last like big studio movies in 2008.
He's in that?
Yeah, a remake.
Wow.
And then he did Street Kings in 2008. So he hadn't had a huge hit. It's funny that you mentioned Constantine, but Constantine's probably the last one that did make a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
That was in 2005, and
Oh, okay.
that was only 2 years after the Matrix Revolutions. That the last Matrix movie before the one they released recently was in 2003. So like he hadn't
Damn, they
been
pumped
in
it
like
that
a big
quick.
hit in like a really long time. But like what everyone has
decade.
almost a decade, and what everyone has said though is that this character, this movie, this role, it plays to his strengths. I know there's a lot of people that say that he's not a good actor, or that I lean on the side of like he at least charismatic enough to carry a movie, or I can
Yeah.
like actually believe him in like in certain roles. And I actually think he can be a really good actor. There's a movie called The Gift that I think I told Owen about. Came out in like 2000 or somewhere around then. Kate Blanchett, and he plays like an abusive, like alcoholic redneck, and it's a scary performance. Like he's like truly good. So he is capable of like moding. I think there's certain things that he like is really good at, and this is what he's good at. And I think he's leaned into that a lot with this franchise, and I think it's just enough where it works. Where he doesn't have to give us like an Oscar-winning monologue in his movies, but he needs to be able to just sell it by the look
I mean, if you
and how he
count the
carries
words
himself
that he, if you count the total amount of lines he has, it's probably like a page and a half.
across
Yeah.
the movies.
Great point. Not dog heavy. Man, a few words.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's stuff that you guys point out is what a lot of critics pointed out about especially the first movie, is that they love the film's mythology of a criminal underworld with specific rituals and rules, and that was praised by most critics for being unique.
Makes
and
it original.
feature about the movie.
The idea of the homelessness too, and how like Fishburne just like rolls that whole thing, and like that scene in John Wick 2 when the homeless guy shoots those two people that are after him because he pays him to like save him. That whole concept is so cool to me because I've never, I mean, actually in LA there's a lot of homeless around here, so
right.
But like after I saw that movie, my perception just completely changed. I was like, is this guy working? Yeah. What's going on here?
It shows how like far-reaching the table and the Continental really are, right? They're in every facet of society, which again, like, but the end of number 2, when everyone in is it Central Park, when Winston kind of like gives this little nod and everyone in Central Park stops walking like on cue, and then they continue when he nods again. It's like shows you like everyone is really in on this world, which is kind of ridiculous but kind of funny at the same time.
It has a good moment, but that scene specifically too, I was like, really?
Yeah, I know, right?
Did you like the first one in theaters?
I saw the first one in theaters, but second and
third. So we're in the same boat. I saw second and third in theaters as well.
Might have. I have all my movie stubs, so I'll have to go check. But I was 16 when it came out. I don't know if I would have like really kept my eye on it or cared at that time, but I don't have memories of seeing it, but I know I saw the last two.
I really felt like I was missing out on the movement when that second movie came out. I was like, where the hell did this come from?
I had to catch up quick.
So much more money than the first one. I was like, how did that happen? I had to be a part of it, but it was, I kind of wish I saw the first one in theaters, but those
big time.
Those sequels in theaters were actually really good. I mean, I go back and forth, man, about which one is my favorite. I'm saying 2 right now, but I feel like I fluctuates. But there were some great moments in like all those in the theater, like on opening night. Like, let's go see, especially the third one. I mean, I think because at this point with the third movie, like you're fully immersed in like what this world is, and that was just a fun, like crowd pleasing movie to see with like a big crowd. It was like a really fun experience.
I can't wait to see 4 with a big crowd, man.
I hope 4 takes it back to sort of the first one, because 2 and 3 are kind of his, like, he's running away and like people are after him. Whereas the first one is like he's on a rampage and he's
on
like
the attack.
Yeah, he's on the attack. So I hope that in 4 he kind of has a little bit more of like gung ho and I'm going after it. So hopefully we get a little bit of that, because 2 and 3 is more of a reactive, trying to stay hidden a little bit. But
time to switch it up.
2 is still my favorite. So hopefully we see some offense here in John Wick 4.
Yeah. I went to. Oh yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. I'll save my point.
There's like these In Search Of documentaries that they've made about like sci-fi movies and then horror movies. They did one on action films too, and they actually talk about Keanu Reeves and John Wick briefly. And a lot of action stars in the 80s, and 90s, early 90s were legit action stars. They were talking about how like, these were people that necessarily didn't have the best acting chops, but you were hiring them because of, their physical
What they could
ability.
do.
Like, so like someone like they mentioned Jean-Claude Van Damme a lot, who was, really, big in the 80s and like an actual, could actually fight. And they didn't have to like cut around him to like make it look legit. And they were saying like with so many actors who eventually become action stars who are like real actors, they felt like, it sucks that they're taking roles kind of away from us because, not getting the real deal. But what they did mention though is that they feel like Keanu Reeves, they mentioned the Matrix, but they were more so with these movies said that this guy is the real deal because he find out that he trained for like 4 months before he did the first movie, and all these different like styles of fighting and like gunplay and like all this stuff. Like they were like, that is someone who is an actor that is legit about wanting to learn about the process of really making like
only method acting that I will take. Only method acting that I'm on board for.
Is that right, eh?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm not a fan of method acting either, but this is like I mentioned earlier, to not have to cut around him too much, to actually kind of see him doing a lot of the fight choreography and handling the weapons, and like knowing that they're not cutting away from him to like, because they're throwing in like a stunt man or something like that, or trying to hide the fact that he's not really doing this stuff. I mean, that's a big thing that this franchise has done as far as
and props to those coordinators too, because when I saw Halle Berry cast, I was like, all right, is she really going to give off the same vibe? She kills it. She looks like she knows what the hell she's doing. And because she does, like, and she's like, you don't have to cut around her either. So respect to all the people that trained them, because that is not easy. And it takes a lot of work to get that perfect. And like the choreography, even the stuntmen who are playing the guys getting killed, like that's not easy either. And I think
the dogs taking them down.
That's an art form. Like, dogs. How did they film that, man? I don't know.
So that is
it's ridiculous.
Impressive to say the least. But that is the thing. That is what I want. If anything's going to be taken away from the John Wick series, it is like the craft that they do put into the stunts and like the work that they have the actors actually do that I would like to see. And I'm sure has been like, I'm sure other movies and productions have taken a play out of John Wick's book by doing that. I just don't have any examples off the top of my head, but can see the literal difference in an action movie that, like Gaius, like you said, cuts away from its actor to have the stuntman do the gun work or this or that, and versus a movie like John Wick that has the cast all on board doing their own stunts, doing their gunplay, handling their weapons. It's a night and day difference. So I think there's a lot of filmmakers out there that could learn from that and have their their actors commit a little bit more to their work. Not saying that it's easy, but you get a better quality movie out of it for sure.
Well, I think it inspired things like Deadpool, like to have the action that Deadpool had 2016.
Who David Leitch did, right?
He did. He did the he was a part of that. Yeah. So you can tell, like, I think like having like we mentioned it before, but having like people who actually have done stunts and know how to like how that works. First of all, kudos to a studio for giving them like the opportunity to direct something, because like we said earlier that people were unsure about kind of financing it because they're like, well, these are first time directors, we don't know what they can do. But you kind of find when like one person is like, when you're good in one kind of medium of the industry, you kind of take that knowledge and apply it to like other aspects of it. So like having years and years and years of being a stuntman, or stuntmen in their cases, like you're able to, I mean, you can learn all the technical stuff about filmmaking, and I'm not saying that's easy, but like you have this other ace in the hole where it's like, all right, I can like, they were talking about how they would invite cameramen into rehearsals for the fight scenes, because usually they said cameramen like think it's kind of meticulous and boring to like shoot fight scenes sometimes, but they were like, no, we want you all to kind of be there to see like how this is going from start to finish. And I think that's why the end result looks as good as it does, because there is like, it's like well choreographed dance basically between like the filmmakers and like camera crew and then the actors as well. And then it starts at the top. You have someone like Keanu Reeves being like, all right, I'm doing this myself, and whoever else is joining in on this fun world we're creating, I hope they can also keep up and get involved in this just as much as I am. So like I think
it's the long shot. It's the long uncut like version of that. I mean, the first one that comes to mind too is that opening scene in The Revenant, when it's like that's that long sort of violent scene
That
that you see,
raid,
but you
yeah.
focus on Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's done insanely well instead
Yeah.
of like here's one scene behind the tree. Like it's not cut to shit, which is like makes it so much more like interactive and immersive.
That's true. I didn't realize. I guess like we were talking about the Bourne movies. I guess they are, because they're so well done, or at least most of them. I kind of forgot that they are a lot of quick cut, kind of action scenes in that movie.
I can't watch it if I'm feeling sick. If I'm feeling like
It's
nauseous,
like-
I remember like I'm like I feel like I'm about to a little nauseous.
Yeah, and I think it's when Paul Greengrass takes over the franchise after the first one that it really turns into like very quick cut, fast pace. But I didn't pay attention to that because like it still looks good in those movies. Like I think as a director he sells it, but like so many people were trying to copy that and
just not
doing not at all.
And all the flashbacks too are like on an angle. Like it's not like just a straight shot. The flashbacks are him sort of like this,
right,
like safe room. I'm like, oh, it's super grainy, and that like those movies do it well, but trying to copy that has been
it wasn't overkill at the time those movies were coming out, right? Now we've seen it a million times and it's like holy shit. Try something else. So it's John Wick was very innovative in that sense, which I can't thank it for enough, because holy shit, did the climate need to change at that point in action cinema.
Well, he's become also sort of like a meme. Like
the Keanu shots, man. Yeah.
He's become like part of popular culture as like John Wick. I mean, even in the sense of he became like a skin in Fortnite and like all these different things where it's like
that's right. I forgot.
And everyone, if you were the best, you had the John Wick one. And it's like I think that creating that sort of canon and having that across the just skyrocketed this thing to norm of what action movies should be.
Totally. I got a question actually that I wanted to throw at both of you. It's harkening back to something Gaius was talking about earlier, but in terms of like Keanu and his people view him as an action star, do you guys think that he is underrated in how people look at him as an action star? Do you think he's evenly rated in terms of how people look at him, or do you think he's overrated in his ability to lead an action franchise? Because I have a very specific thought on this that I was talking with my buddy Cam with. I wanted to hear what you guys have to think about that.
Do you want to take that first?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's tough because he's been part of such successful franchises that, I mean, no matter how you look at The Matrix or how you look at John Wick, like it's successful. And I think that his normal day, like the way that Keanu just is as a person, is so well loved that I don't think he's overrated at all, because people love him in everything that he's
likable guy in Hollywood.
Most likable guy.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that in like his action stuff, is just like Point Break, even like that is something. Yeah, like that is something that like he does great in, and so I think that his dialogue isn't necessarily his strongest suit, I would say.
FBI agent.
But he has the ability to if John Wick, if Keanu Reeves is cast
is John Wick
in an action movie, then you know you're going to get some good stuff, because you know he's going to take it seriously and you know he's going to kill it. So I think that I think maybe a little underrated, or maybe just perfectly rated. I think he does a good job, and he has the ability to carry it.
I think he's underrated in the sense that I don't think people give him as much credit as they probably should. And it's not just this franchise. Like you mentioned Point Break, that is a influential action movie. Speed is a influential action movie. You know, The Matrix has a very influential action movie. And then you get to this, like, I don't think he gets enough credit for appearing in these kind of movies nearly as much as like when he started doing the first one, he was 49 years old when he did John Wick. I mean, like he's not a spring chicken by any means, like doing these movies, but he is like still giving it 110% and selling it completely. So like I think he's underrated in the sense, like I brought up Tom Cruise earlier. I mean, I think Keanu Reeves is a showman in his own way, where he wants the audience to be entertained. He wants them to have like a realistic experience. No, he's not jumping out of an airplane or doing something as crazy as like Tom Cruise, but still
he's a trendsetter.
yeah, it's still just as physical though. Still, I mean, it's banding on your
That's right.
the body, and then like like I didn't really think about it until you mentioned like his other action movies that were just so kind of influential for the genre, like
Mhm.
in general. I mean, he's been a part of those kind of movements on more than one occasion, and a lot of people can't say that.
So that's the point that I wanted to get at, is like among these two massive franchises now with 4 entries apiece, and then like some smaller singular one-off action movies he's done from earlier in his career, I think he's criminally underrated in his ability to lead or command an action movie. Like I don't feel like the casual audience or even like the industries in general like really looks to Keanu Reeves when they're thinking of like the action greats. And this is like back to the point that I was having with my buddy, and I think he's more than deserved that by now. So I just wanted to see if you guys agreed with that, which seems like that's the case.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, he should definitely be up there on the mountain. I know
Mount
Mount Rushmore of
especially contemporary action.
yeah.
Yeah, I think what happens too, though, I mean, like the Matrix is influential, right? But then once you start talking about the sequels, then it's like, they're not as well received as like that first
Right.
movie.
But they're still insanely successful.
They're still successful. And
Influential.
then if you go back to like Point Break and Speed, it's like, oh, that was so long ago. I think like people make excuses as to like why you can't really, give the guy his due. But like, I think what he did with like the John Wick franchise is like further prove that, I would go to him over a lot of people to headline an action movie.
Oh yeah.
I think
Totally.
the one problem, I don't think it's happened yet, but like we run into is that like if he does other action movies, how do you set it apart from like what this is? Like when he's a lead in another action movie, it's like, all right, he has to be
It's a good point.
completely different from John Wick. And the problem that you run into with Keanu Reeves as an actor is that like, he kind of has like, he's John Wick. Yeah, I mean, he has a sameness to some of
not one-dimensional, but like in that playing field.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So I think it becomes harder when you think about like, oh, can he headline other? I think he can, but are they gonna be like, well, this is basically like a John Wick like 2.0 kind of thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
So yeah, but again, I still think I would 100% support a Keanu Reeves action movie at the theater, and like I think out of all of his contemporaries, he's probably one of the best to do it.
Agreed.
And
He's made a lot of money for a lot of franchise, a lot of studios. How much do you think this one's gonna make?
yeah, and honestly, insanely smart guy who has like he took a pay cut when he did The Matrix and took a piece of the box office because he had faith that movie was gonna make some money, and he got paid handsomely for it. And I think in this situation where he had John Wick, and I don't even think he realized that it was gonna be what it is, and it did kind of start this whole like new like renaissance with him, as in like people are like, oh, he's in stuff that makes money again, like everyone loves him. I don't even know why we let him fall off. We shouldn't let that happen again. Like
no,
it's not like that again.
Torontonian.
Yep. Was he really?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
He was. I'm looking it up. He was. I knew he was Canadian only because the song shouted that out. A song called "Stronger Beer" by Tim Hicks, and it's contrasting American and Canadians. And there's a part where it's like, "You guys have Brad Pitt, we have Keanu Reeves," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know he was Canadian." But I'm seeing here, according to IMDb, he was actually born in Lebanon in Beirut, but moved to Toronto when he was younger. Yeah, it's crazy.
I imagine that he has like an interesting backstory, because I feel like you don't really know a lot about Keanu Reeves. Like
Mysterious
he's like,
dude.
Yeah, he like, and
if he was British, he would have been knighted like 20 years ago.
I think so too. Actually,
so right.
He would have been Sir Keanu Reeves in a heartbeat.
Oh, doesn't that have a ring to it?
Sir Keanu Reeves. If only we can make that happen.
You guys know the thing about his name in Hawaiian and all that?
No.
Oh no.
Which I'm not taking credit for this. I'm just reading it right now. But it says like the opening line in his biography in IMDb is Keanu Charles Reeves, whose first name means "cool breeze over the mountains" in Hawaiian. Like,
nice.
How sick is
that's perfect for him, dude. That's perfect.
That is perfect. He has a cool breeze over the mountains.
Yeah, that's Keanu, man.
Cool.
That's hilarious.
All right. So, I mean, do you think action movies are still going to continue to, like, this is the new standard now, right? Like, I don't know what else you can kind of
100%.
do. I don't think anyone will tolerate kind of regressing back to like quick cuts and not having legit action scenes. I mean, I think it's cool that this franchise can lead that way a bit. Now, I mean, I'm sure every studio still, I mean, ever since the first one became like a decent sized hit, and then the second one proved that like this isn't going anywhere, that every studio is trying to find their like, well, what's our John Wick? And it's to Lionsgate's credit, they're like, we're gonna like keep this going as a franchise. We're gonna spin it off. I openly complain about that sometimes, but like I feel like so far this hasn't been bad. Like
Nope.
I'm all for the TV show The Continental that they're doing. I think the ballerina thing is interesting. I think Anna de Armas leading that is really good
Awesome.
That's a
casting
good choice.
and Keanu Reeves is gonna be making a cameo in that to kind of like connect all that too.
Mhm.
I did hear him say, him and the director of this last one, they were like, because remember at one point John Wick Chapter 4 and 5 were supposed to be filmed back to back, and then a lot of stuff with COVID
Oh,
happened, and then now they're like, they said they're gonna like want to rest on 4 and see how it does, and then
I
kind of
think that's a
take a
good
nap,
idea.
and then kind of take a nap on it, and then see what they can kind of do next. Don't take it too long, because like he can still do it, but he's getting up there.
He's not getting
And
younger.
he's
though.
not getting
No,
younger.
true.
58.
That's crazy.
I think it's
Yeah,
a good
but
idea that they're not gonna jam out a bunch of stuff right away. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure Lionsgate is like
It's-
through this
yeah.
93% fresh rating, and like we're about to have the biggest opening of
That's
the
good
franchise so
signs.
far. I'm sure the studio is like, "Are you sure you want to talk about this sooner? Like, you really want to wait?" But yeah,
Right.
now that we're at Chapter 4, it entered box office tracking. It's anywhere between 65 and 70 million dollars for its opening weekend. Could
Damn.
go
Should
it
we
could
take
go higher.
predictions?
Yeah, it could go higher than
think
that.
so.
Like, and I think the only caveat here is it's almost 3 hours long, but I guess that hasn't stopped.
Oh fuck.
I mean, Avatar made a lot of money.
Yes.
On that, so yeah, uh, he's all ready for it.
I'm just- I'm ready. I'm just thinking like I heard the box office potential, but maybe not. It might not have an impact at all.
To give you guys a little framework, we said the first movie opened to $14.4 million. That's crazy. And on a $20 million budget, made $43 million domestic and $86 million worldwide. John Wick Chapter 2 opened to $30.4 million, made $92 million domestic and $174.3 million worldwide.
Dude, that
And
third
then,
must have raked.
And then John Wick Chapter 3, $56.8 million opening weekend on a $75 million budget, made $171 million domestic and $328.3 million worldwide. This is like one of the few franchises that has grown box office wise.
That's
Usually you see a downturn. But Jackson and I have been like so off and on with our box office predictions. Sometimes we've been really good, and sometimes we've been like so off.
Way off.
Way
right.
off. Jackson, I'll go to you first. What do you? He's like, no.
I had no, because I'm like writing down my number and I have my first digit and I was like just kind of bouncing on my second. You said the third one opened to 63?
56.8 million. Yeah.
56? Oh, okay.
0.8 million.
56.
Yeah.
I was like, I had 75 in my head because I want to be on the ambitious side of tracking, but like
Yeah.
that's been a problem with some of my early predictions where I've been too conservative and then
Generous.
it's over. Exactly. So I think I might take it down to, I want to go in the 70s, so I'm going to put it at a 71, which is
Okay.
ambitious, but I think the hype's there.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, what about
71
you,
mil. Good luck.
Oh man, I got some high hopes. 77.
Okay. I like it.
Okay. Mine are a little higher than yours.
Oh,
I'm basing this on like the reviews are so good right now, and like they were good like 2 weeks ago, like
True.
before the movie even opened,
I
and
got a 9.2 audience score on IMDb.
it's
Holy
just
shit.
like ridiculous. I'm going slightly above you. I'm saying 80.
Okay.
$80 million opening
Okay.
weekend.
I
The
feel
only
like
thing
I don't
think
have as
that
much
could-
faith in it, but I do.
The only thing that
Going
could
first
hurt
in box office predictions is the worst because then once everyone else puts theirs out, you're like, shit, I should have changed mine.
Yeah, damn.
I know when you start reading other people's, you're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
much better
What-
than mine.
What were you just in the middle of saying?
I mean, I always struggle with going too high, but I really think that like the word of mouth is there, and I think like the review's not just being like good, but like declaring it as one of the best action movies ever made. I mean, that's a bold statement. I just think people are gonna want to rush out to see it. Like I said, the only thing that could be an issue is the runtime. I mean, you can't really get that many showings in a day when the movie's that long. But I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure like
True.
it's gonna take over most of like it's definitely gonna take away like Shazam screen. So I guess
Dude, Shazam's gonna plummet.
Yeah.
this weekend. Poor Zachary Levi. But yeah, I feel good about 80. I think it can get that high.
I like where you guys are at too. I thought I was going on the higher end, but clearly not. That's fine. I think it'll no doubt do well. And what would you say that it's at rocking for a budget?
It's
35?
I think so. It's like the highest one so far.
Big time.
They've been able to keep these budgets relatively low on these movies though.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I think that has a lot to do with like being more practical and like less use of effects and all that stuff. Can't believe we're on a fourth movie like this and it's getting the reception that it's getting like already. Like
That is nice to see, honestly. That's change.
I remember when I
Mission
saw the
Impossibles.
when I saw the runtime, I sent that to Owen, and I was just like, "That is a lot of movie," and I was like, "It better be really good because that's a lot of movie."
Yeah.
Because I was like, "They're not even going to try to cut it down." I'm like, "All right, no, 2 hours and 55 minutes, cool."
40 minutes
man.
longer than John Wick 3.
But I think it will be consistently good. From what I've seen from people who have seen it already, they've said that like it doesn't really let up, which is a good sign.
Right. No.
I'm looking forward to that. I usually go see
I can't wait.
we gotta see that this weekend, man. I usually go to Thursday showings with my brother, and I was like, "Hey, I can't go to that one because I won't be able to go to like 9, and I'm not going to like a 3-hour movie. Like,
I'm not
that late.
not going to bed at 1 a.m. for
morning. So like a solid during the day, Saturday or Sunday, all about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't wait, and I'll make up for skipping Shazam. Sorry,
Yeah. I'm gonna try to get it in this weekend too, so we can chat about it further.
But yeah,
I'm excited.
But yeah, any final thoughts on your first episode together, guys?
Oh, dude, this was great.
Fun, man.
This was awesome.
I could talk about John Wick or just even stuff like this all day. It was great.
All night.
This is fun, and I'm glad to see that like our chemistry, my chemistry, Jackson, is good, and you guys have never really talked to each other until this, and it seemed like you guys had. I mean, that's the biggest thing the best compliment I've gotten about the show with Jackson is that people were like, it seems like you guys like were actually friends or knew each other beforehand, and it wasn't just someone you were just like, hey, you comment on G-Reels, do you want to be on our show?
Right.
You know, like
it's funny how it actually happened though.
Yeah, what a good universe worked out. I really liked like how we all got together, and I'm very happy that we're all a part of the same team as well, and that feels really good. So
let's go back to the blockbuster.
That's the power of the movies, man. Do those things, bring people together.
Point.
I love it.
All right, so
I had a blast, boys.
Usually it's Jackson that does our outro, but
take us away, buddy.
Let's go. Guys, thank you for listening to Back to the Blockbuster with Jackson, Gaius, and special appearance by myself. Just keep listening, guys. I mean, this is what we love to do. We love to talk about movies. We look forward to this every single week to bring you guys new content and chit chat about what we think is going on in topics, movie news, entertainment. Just one of the things that we love to do, and we love to bring it to you. You can find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Personally, myself, Spotify. Go to.
Hey, me too.
Yeah, Jackson, hop on board the train. And I know Apple Podcasts is kind of one of those things that people like to do, but I think Yahoo might have a podcast channel now. Who knows? Tune in on Yahoo. And just keep listening. Amazon does too. Yeah,
they all got them.
Yeah. Shout out to Playlist as always. They have been just a great contributor for us to continue to make creative content and give us a lot of freedom. And it is just one of the biggest and most beneficial partnerships that we've had. It's just been a great time with them. So always huge shout out to Playlist. Tuning in. Gaius and I record our spinoff, Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius tomorrow. So it is finally my pick, and you'll be able to get a chance to listen to that on Friday, I believe it is. So keep tuning in, guys, and we will see you on Friday and next week.
Peace.
All right, guys. Pleasure, boys.